The NPA's investigating Directorate has seized assets worth more than 520 million rand belonging to the Gupta family, their business associate Iqbal Sharma and his wife Tarina Patel. Now the seizure follows a decision by the Free State High Court in Bloemfontein on Wednesday to grant the Directorate an order to preserve the assets of Island Site Investments. For more on this, I'm joined by senior politics reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo. Good to have you with us once again, Ngcobo. Now, this is quite a sizable progress as far as the NPA is concerned, and as far as this entire case involving the Guptas, certainly a change of gear that we're starting to see.
Absolutely, and I couldn't have said it better, that this has been almost 5 years in the making since, you know, the Gupta leaks emails came out with the details of how then the Gupta family, through their henchmen, as they've been described, have been skimming off contracts, money from state coffers, I should say. And so this is a significant development, that assets are now being seized, that some of the money that was taken unduly so may be recovered. 520 million is $500 million really, and we know that Iqbal Sharma appeared in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court on Thursday alongside 3 other officials who used to work in the Free State Department. So this is linked to that, Estina Dairy Farm project. And what Iqbal Sharma is accused of doing is actually benefiting, getting 24 million rand. He was supposed to do a feasibility study, which he ended up not doing, and subcontracting that particular contract for 1.5 million rand, and then also further subcontracted as again with Gupta companies. Now this is when you get the Gupta link, where then there was, I think, a transfer of about 19 million rand to the Gupta company. So all these assets that were seized today include, I should mention, his home here in Morningside with 12 million, movable assets of about 500,000 rand, and in terms of the Guptas, their property in Saxonwold, and some of the other details include a house in Constantia in Cape Town worth 21 million rand, and all of these assets are deemed to be the proceeds to have been bought as a result of the proceeds of crime. And so this is very significant, that we know, for an example, that Iqbal Sharma was remanded into custody. His bail hearing will only be on Monday. And so when we look at what came out into the Gupta leaks and what the NPA's investigating directorate, which was specifically set up as well to deal with all these cases related to state capture, this is a very significant development. But also, I suppose it will boost the confidence that the public has in the NPA and the capacity that it has to be able to conduct such investigations and see them through.
What's quite significant as well, Ziyanda, is to note that the assets that are in the names of the wives have also been seized in this case. Not only the assets belonging to Tarina Patel, but also the wives of Atul and Rajesh Gupta, Chetali and Arti Gupta. Those assets have also been seized.
Absolutely, and all, if you look at the court papers that they've been served with, the wives of the Gupta brothers, as well as Iqbal Sharma, they also fall into what the NPA describes in a statement as basically a money laundering scheme, and in terms of basically following the money and how the money was spent. And that's in essence what today's exercise is about. I mean, if you look at the house and the money that the company that Iqbal Sharma owns, New Lane, actually received, was 24 million rand. And that house that has been seized today, you'll see on our visuals, that house belongs to Iqbal Sharma, even featured on top billing at some stage. This house is worth 12 million rand. So, and these are for part of the assets then that were seized by the NPA's investigating directorate earlier on this morning.
And talk to us about the assets belonging directly to Atul and Rajesh Gupta, as well as their wives' island site investments.
So as I mentioned earlier, there was a second subcontract concluded between New Lane, which is owned by Iqbal Sharma, and UAE-based Gateway Limited, which duplicated the one with Deloitte and Touche, and that the work that was supposed to have been done by Iqbal Sharma was then subcontracted to the Gupta-owned Gateway Limited, and they got 19 million rand offshore. And then when you look then at those assets, you know, some of the assets that were seized from the Guptas, it was that house I mentioned with 21 million rand in Constantia near Cape Town, and a 12 million house in Saxonwold, the infamous house in Saxonwold, which now as you listen to this, you're able to begin connecting the dots between some of the information that's coming out of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, the meetings that were held in Saxonwold, and then also not forgetting that Iqbal Sharma also was the chairperson of the tender committee at Transnet, which oversaw then that doomed locomotives contracts where the trains basically were not designed for South Africa, to put it mildly. I think it was 1,064 locomotives. And so Iqbal Sharma is one of the kingpins in this entire enterprise, one of the people who was assisting them to also assist the Guptas, rather, actually, you know, retrieve funds unduly so for work that wasn't even done. And so here we have Iqbal Sharma basically also suggesting the name of a Gupta company for that Freda dairy farm, which we all know nothing was ever done. The black farmers there never actually got what was due to them. And so this today is a very significant moment in trying to recover what was wrongfully taken to begin with.
And talking about connecting the dots, once you do start connecting the dots, you start getting a bit of a web, because there's so many intersections. You know, there's the Transnet, there's Freda Dairy Farm, and they all seem to intercept. Talk to us, Ziyanda, about what will actually happen to these assets pending the trial and the hearings and an eventual outcome of these trials.
Well, as you'd know, for an example, that the Guptas, there is now an effort from the NPA. They've asked Interpol to assist them to actually have the Gupta brothers arrested. I think the next step is for them to actually now face the music in a court of law. Those assets will remain in the possession, although of course property is an immovable asset, but they will, you know, remain in the possession of the NPA pending the conclusion of the court proceedings, which would include bail and actually then taking the matter to the High Court, serving an indictment, and actually then moving towards a trial. And so at this stage, nothing can be done with those particular assets. But, you know, if the state does win its case, then the houses can be sold, the other movable assets can be sold, and that money can go back into the state coffers.
And as you mentioned, Iqbal Sharma as well as Peter Tabete are in the holding cells until Monday. So the assets, or rather the affidavit, will be served to them at the behind the holding cells. Ziyanda, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. That's our Ziyanda Ngcobo updating us on the latest regarding the progress that the NPA is making.